Anti-corruption agencies have exciting opportunities to use open source intelligence to detect, investigate, and prosecute corruption. Open source intelligence is also an excellent way to detect unexplained wealth, identify financial proceeds of corruption, and to identify potential conflicts of interest. Many anti-corruption agencies recognize the value of open source intelligence. However, most agencies are at the earliest stage of designing and building open source capacity. This short video summarizes key investments anti-corruption agencies must make if they are to use open source intelligence effectively. The key investments arose from a workshop hosted in Thailand in 2019 by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime and the American Bar Association Rule of Law Initiative.
ABA Rule of Law Initiative and UNODC were very happy to gather countries from South and Southeast Asia to participate in this event. We had intelligence experts, investigative journalists, cybercrime experts sharing their methods and techniques with anti-corruption investigators and prosecutors. And it was a very rich discussion for everyone.
We are happy to have 30 investigators from 9 countries in the room that not only learn about these new techniques, but really try to interact among themselves, how to cooperate better and how to learn from each other.
I think anti-corruption agencies can gain a lot from OSINT intelligence research in a way that they haven't historically done so. Realising OSINT's a fairly new phenomenon and so rapidly expanding in terms of scope and resource and depth of coverage that agencies, governmental agencies are, in my experience, fairly slow to react, fairly slow to develop. So on one hand, to gain knowledge of the emerging world of information, digital information, online information is one thing, and then to gain specific skills in collecting and using this sort of information. The agencies generally resort to special powers way too quickly, and when they're looking at research tools, don't give enough credence to what's just out there publicly available.
Put simply, open source intelligence is intelligence produced from publicly available information, such as television, radio, newspapers and magazines, as well as commercial databases, videos, specialised journals, conference proceedings, think tank studies and the immense range of information online. Of course, military, law enforcement and anti-corruption agencies have always used publicly available information for intelligence and investigation purposes, but there's been a huge change in the explosion of online information, the rise of specialist websites for investigators, and the extraordinary range of social media. The internet and the rise of social media have made open source intelligence more complex in terms of both sources and methods. This transformation of open source intelligence is so significant that the RAND Corporation, a global policy think tank, argues it should be seen as a second generation of open source intelligence. The second generation of open source intelligence requires anti-corruption agencies to develop new knowledge, new skills, and new methods for information collection, storage, validation, analysis, and dissemination.
I think there are 3 main advantages for anti-corruption agencies in using open source intelligence. The first is the ability to detect and investigate domestic corruption and also the transnational aspects of corruption. The second is much greater ability to understand where corruptly obtained assets may be hidden, so investigating the beneficial owners of those assets, the company structures and the people behind them. The third is the ability to detect wider networks of criminal offenders or corrupt offenders that you may not have been aware of at the start of the investigation.
We are also highlighting something that might be a complete novelty for investigators, and that's the point of our program, which highlights the role of journalists and civil society, because open source has also changed completely the role of the public in gathering some information and accessing some information, and in a way pushing for changes or pushing for investigation or highlighting the cases that otherwise wouldn't see the light of the day.
What I really want to kind of insist on is that we don't look at open source intelligence as a way of building an intelligence profile that's sort of biographical about a person. We're not looking to create an encyclopedia article about a person using information that we've harvested from the public domain. We're not training people to behave like secret police and sort of collect intelligence on any individuals they're interested in to build a profile. That's not what we're trying to do. What I wanted to show through my presentation was how you can use sources that perhaps you wouldn't normally look at as open source intelligence to perhaps broaden existing investigations, to find, for example, new people connected to people that you're already investigating who might have a role within a wider criminal organization, or to even start new investigations. The objective of this is to go after serious criminal organizations, corruption rackets, drug trafficking, prostitution, human trafficking, that kind of thing.
So a good intelligence product is one that has the aim specifically stated, the scope specifically stated, the collection plan based on that scope, and a report that is a synthesis of relevant information from that collection, with whatever tactical, strategic, or whatever conclusions they're based on which it's based. But it all hangs on knowing what you're collecting and why. I'm a process person. I believe in hanging investigations, hanging research on a process, a system, which I find doesn't often happen, especially in regards to research, particularly with regards to OSINT. The OSINT world, being largely online based, is not expensive. It's easily accessible. It doesn't require a great investment in money, but I would like to see priorities given to an investment in time and training. These guys in the corruption agency really need to have a lot of process focus to keep things under control, especially as investigations can go on for years. Teams can change, investigators can change, so without a process to hang it on, what often, and I've seen happen many times, is that dead ends are reached, massive amounts of time and resource are wasted, and investigations quickly lose focus.
Future opportunities and priorities for anti-corruption agencies to use open source intelligence effectively. Firstly, to develop knowledge and skills of a rapidly developing area, and an area that includes many emerging online resources that are very important for anti-corruption agencies. The second is to develop the intelligence process itself. So systems and procedures for collection, validation, analysis, and storage of the intelligence, and also a whole new subject really of dissemination of the intelligence product of anti-corruption agencies. So, for example, taxation offences that are associated with the corrupt offending, and so taxation authorities may have an interest in their intelligence product, and also, of course, anti-money laundering regulators, financial intelligence units, and through them banks could benefit from the analysis being conducted of open source intelligence by anti-corruption agencies, especially to more effectively detect and investigate the proceeds of corruption flowing through the banking sector.